Hi, friends, and welcome. I am your hot mess of a host, Mary Hendricks from The Very Merry Life, your new mom friend that soon will feel like an old friend. Twice a week, every week, I want you to come and join me as we cover moments in motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. Some moments worth savoring, others worth surviving, all with a laugh, pep talk, or F-bomb every now and again. I want you to come as you are, but leave the sugarcoating behind because, guys, we know how sweet it already is. So what do you say? Up for picking some daisies?
I've done a couple podcasts before, but I always get a little nervous right before. And then I was like listening to your podcast recently too, and I'm like, it's just cat. It's literally how you describe it. It's like two people just having a conversation, which is all of my favorite podcasts are like that.
Yeah, well, and the most nerve-wracking portion of it, and we'll just start it right here. Hi, everyone. We're just starting. That's what I do. I make it easy peasy.
Yeah.
Where it gets awkward, and Meaghan and I are talking in a second, we're talking about how awkward it is when you first hit off a podcast, or when you first hit record, or how nerve-wracking it is, because I'm the same exact way when I've been on podcasts. It's the first introduction, which I'm going to have you do in a second.
Okay.
That makes it like the most official. When it's official and being like, hi, welcome to the episode, then that's where it gets all nerve-wracking for me, at least, because I'm like, oh, it's official.
Yes.
It's begun. But anyway, all right, guys. Hi. Hello. We are here, another episode, and this one is actually going to be very, very good and very helpful for moms, every type of mom that you can think of, women, whoever is listening right now. This is going to be beneficial for you. I have Meaghan Langston here with me. Meaghan, say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. So Meaghan and I got connected. I don't even remember.
No, I think I was just following you and
yeah, but I think we connected either right after I had Haley or right before. I think I may have been pregnant even. But,
yes, because my daughter's around the same age as Haley. She's a year and a half.
Yes. Yeah.
Around the same time.
Yeah. So we got connected there, and you actually helped me out. I know. I think you and I had planned before the new year, and I kind of went through like goals and things like that with you, and that was incredibly helpful because I am. I don't know if I have ADHD, but if I did, I wouldn't be shocked if someone told me that, because I am the worst with planning and calendars and everything. And I almost like, if I have too much time, then I get like procrastination to the max, or I freeze a little bit. I'm really bad at time management. So you were a breath of fresh air when I met you.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's been fun working with you and just following along and seeing your family grow and change. And
all right, so tell everyone about you, and then we'll chat.
Okay, so my name's Meaghan Langston, aka the Meaning Mentor. I go by the Meaning Mentor because I'm a success coach and a productivity expert, and kind of my thing is helping people put more meaning back into their life. So I do that through goal setting and through productivity. So helping people with time management and figuring out a way to work more efficiently, or just to live more efficiently, get the things done that they want to get done. So they can spend time on the things that matter to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, important. I just posted on Instagram because my kids started full-time school recently, and it has been, oh my God. I'm stuck in between a place of like, I have so much time where I have like all these things that I want to do, but then it's almost bad that I have so much time, because I'm like, oh.
Well, 3:00 comes by really fast. Like all of a sudden.
Fast.
Yeah. And I think we're in a similar situation. Like the youngest is home and two big kids. So big kids are at school, and by the time you're like, little one's been fed, goes down for a nap, you're like, oh shoot, I gotta go to the bus stop, or when it's already time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you start your second half of your day, which is a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a interesting transition. Although I love it. Right now, what I can feel, and the thing that's helping me is having that extra time, though. I've been able to get more things done that I wasn't able to get beforehand when I was so like crunched for time with them being home. And it's because I think if they were home a little bit longer, I definitely would have had to like really sit and like routine out our day, because I thrive on routine.
Yes.
And the summer of not having that was awful.
Absolutely awful. And I'm sure we'll get into it more, but like, I think there's something to be said just about like the intentionality of like, okay, I'm with my kids and I want to be present. And there's all this other stuff we have to do as moms just to take care of the house. And then if we're working as well, that it's really difficult when, I mean, of course, the mom guilt starts to creep in, but you're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to do something right now, but you also need my attention. Everything takes a lot longer. And I think now that the kids are back at school, I'm noticing I can be a little bit more intentional with my time and being like, this is
Yep.
the time I am working. And then when they're home, I'm like ready. Okay, they're getting off the bus. I want to connect with them, find out how their day was, and then just like be present.
Yeah, same. That's it. That even today, I feel like a spark where I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit happier. And I
Mm-hmm.
made dinner and I
Yeah.
feel as like crunched on that. I actually was like nice to do that
Mm-hmm.
tonight. And I typically always eat dinner. And I'm realizing it was because I didn't have that intention. Like I was so scattered in so many areas of my life, and lacking that routine and lacking that structure was
Yeah.
killing me. It was absolutely killing me. And I think that's the one big thing as moms, and we were saying as moms need it, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom too. And I feel like that's important
Mm-hmm.
because we have so much time, but not really, because obviously it's full of everything else, but like we have our own time to figure out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it really is. I mean, I think I took a shift when my older two were in daycare. I used to
Yeah.
work in an office setting. They were in daycare, and then, there's a big age gap. And my youngest has been home with me. And I think, having her and transitioning, make that decision to be home with her and still try to work now that I work for myself, it's been a
Yeah.
blessing. But I totally understand now what the issue or what the like the other side of it is, because I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a full-time job being here. And my husband and I talk about it all the time. It's like you're either doing it yourself or you're paying someone to do it, but it has to
Yeah.
get done. Like managing the household is a full-time job. And
Yeah.
so doing that on top of working and, like I said, trying to be present. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but I introduce myself as someone who helps people with time management and put more meaning back into their life. But when I first started my business, I sort of set out thinking like, you can have it all. And I look
Yeah.
back and it was like, I'm naive. You really can't. And I don't say that
No.
to be
Yeah.
like to discourage anyone, but I feel like sometimes even I will be on Instagram scrolling and I'll get that message that's like, you can have it all. You should have it all. And if you're a working mom or a stay at home mom and you're not like
Yeah.
thriving, then there must be something wrong and you can fix it with, and so like a time management hack or something. So I try really hard not to like perpetuate
Yeah.
that message, because
Yeah.
I don't think it's about having it all. I think it's about figuring out what is the most important to you during
Important.
this
And
season.
yeah, I think that's huge. And I always say to like, especially my friends of mine that are having babies now, I'm always telling them you have to figure out your non-negotiables. That's what it
Yeah,
has to
that's
be.
a
You
great way
have
to
to
put it.
create a list
Mhm.
because you have those. Anything additional is bonus. Like that is
Mhm.
bonus. You want to start with like, the basic needs. I think those are non-negotiables and things like that. But the other things that are for you and what is important to get done that day, and each day it can change your each stage of life, that those non-negotiables
Yeah.
might switch. It's important for you to sit down and go through them, and then also tell your spouse and significant
Yeah,
other
exactly.
is huge, because you need that support to like stay on top of it.
Yeah, I love putting it that way, non-negotiables, and then everything else can kind of change and should change at
Yeah.
different times in your life and your kids' life. And then they have they're whole humans with their different needs. And one year they might be struggling more than another year and need more attention from you or whatever it might be. And so being flexible and open to that is so important. But it's difficult as soon as you feel like you've gotten into a routine or you've figured it out, something new
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Oh, every time. It's
Yeah.
literally every time, especially like because you and I both have little ones the same age. It's like that first 18 months, I feel like we're finally hitting a steadiness with them in terms of routine. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel like that. You realize that your structure in life switches with each nap
Yeah,
phase.
exactly. Are you
Like
on the
in the
3 nap,
newborn
2 nap,
stages,
1 nap? Yeah.
yeah, when it drops and keeps dropping, but your life that you have when you have two naps going on versus when they have
Yes.
one nap, you
I
have
know
to
the
like
freedom.
completely
I love the 1 nap.
reconfigure.
Yeah.
I know. One nap I like. However, it is smack dab in the middle of the day, which works out for me now
Yeah.
for like kids being at school. Like I'm structured and knowing like you're going down by
In the
noon. That way
morning.
I get
Yeah,
like
exactly.
2 hours and then we'll wake you up before we have to go get the kids. And I'm
Yeah.
that works for me. But during the summer, that was a killer.
Yeah.
The
You'd
kids
be
wanted to go and
just
do stuff.
getting, to the pool or whatever.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, we got to turn around and go home. But yeah, it's interesting. So for moms and for people and anyone listening, like where is the first step? If someone is sitting down and they are so overwhelmed with like their day and so many deliverables, depending on, I don't know if they're working or not, but it doesn't matter at this end of the day, it's still something on the list. If they're so overwhelmed, what's the first step like in trying to figure this out?
Yeah, get a handle on sort of what's going on. I always say it's with value setting, and it's like figuring out what your values are. Everyone has values that are driving their behavior right now. They just always haven't been identified or verbalized. And so if you look at how you're spending your time now, a lot of times that can be a good indicator of what you value because you tend to make time for the things that you care about. And so I usually, if I'm working with someone or I'm just talking to them, I would encourage them to look at the way they're spending their time now and then like going a little bit deeper, because sometimes people well, I spend a ton of time, watching TV. That doesn't obviously mean you value that, but what is the need behind it? Because it could be like that is your avenue to express autonomy or something that you're not getting elsewhere right now. And so maybe that's what you need to address. If you feel like you're wasting time, using air quotes, because that's what I hear people say all the time, like, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm wasting time doing this. It's like you're probably not actually wasting that time. That's meeting some sort of need for you. Maybe you could get that need met elsewhere. Maybe it's a root of some other problem.
That's a really great point. I actually don't think I ever thought about that because that is true. Like, I feel like on days that I'm going to use a TV example. There are some days where I am adamant about putting on my shows and like spending a lot of time on that. And that's usually because I'm like burnt out and it's been during a period of where I've like had no me time.
And so maybe you just need that, or you need to build it in. If you feel like it's taking over your life, then how are you like building that in? So you feel like you have a little bit more control, or like I used the word intentionality before. But so like auditing your time and then trying to figure out what's most important to you right now. And a lot of times I ask the question, what does success look like for you in this area of your life, in this season of your life? So what does success look like for you as a mom to your 3 kids at the ages they are, and what's going on with you personally? And then if you use some words to describe that, those are going to be the things that you're going to want to focus your time on. And then we can get into, time management hacks and tips and things like that. But what's the point in becoming, a really productive version of yourself if your life still lacks meaning, if you're not pursuing the things that are important to you or are going to add value to your life?
Yeah. Well, and for everyone listening, because Meaghan and I work together, like I can tell you one-on-one, like you really do get personal with Meaghan in that, like I think what I loved with working with you and just what you're doing is that it's a personal approach. So like when she coaches you through this, like you're getting to know who you're coaching, what's going on with them. That way it's a realistic schedule that you're building in, which I think was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone's is a little bit different. And I mentioned like Instagram or whatever social media platform you're on, TikTok or whatever. There's so many like my morning routine, like up at 5 a.m. and then I'm chugging 3 glasses of water.
Oh my God, yeah.
Having
I made a TikTok off of that because there was someone, it's this very creator. If people have been listening to my episodes, they will know that there's one creator in particular. I got messages being like, who is it? And I'm like, I'm not gossiping, but there's one creator.
Oh yeah, I listened to a podcast. I tried to figure out who it was for a long time, but I'm not on TikTok, but I'm like, who is this? Yeah.
I know. There's one, but she did something and she put up on Threads. Funny enough, it was on that new Instagram app. She put up on Threads and she just typed out a paragraph about her routine in the morning and how it's important to strive for success here, because it's something, the way she worded it was about success and failure. So basically she was saying, if you're not doing this, you're a failure.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, right. Come on. I don't even say anything. I'm like just someone in the sidelines being like, okay, what you're putting up is crazy. But I made a TikTok on it because I was fired up. I was like having a day where I was looking at everything that I had to do and I was so overwhelmed by the to-do list. Like it just, I know what my to-do list, and I know that it is long, like being that, especially as a default parent and things like that, like my list of things is long. And sometimes I just roll with it and don't pay attention. But that day in particular, I just was so
like
aware
overwhelmed.
of how much I can't do in a day that it was so overwhelming. And when I saw that, I was like, so I made a video and I was like, we need to be for real right now. Like that is not the get up at 5 a.m. And great if you do. Seriously, I think some people love that. But as a one size fits all, it was like, that doesn't work. And I said, you don't know what stage of life people's in. And like, for me, my kids mostly sleep through the night at this point, but I want my sleep. Like I am catching up on all of the past 12 months worth of no sleep right now. Where it's like, that's not realistic. And to think that someone's saying I'm a failure for not, I'm like,
yeah, totally. I think those add to people's guilt way more than it does like support them. Although I think sometimes it's like, oh, that can be inspiring. Like, oh, I want to try that.
Well,
maybe that would work for me. But it's like, what will that do for you? How is it going to support, again, the values that you have or whatever big picture goals that you have? So if you have a goal to like, grow your business right now or something, if you're a business owner, and you don't have enough time during the day, sure, maybe getting up earlier when you're more focused and the kids aren't up is a great time to do that. Or, if you don't have other opportunities, resources to get childcare or something like that, then that's a great chance. Or like you're low energy and you feel like exercising first thing in the morning is going to help. Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would start with what are you trying to accomplish? And then what are some of the routines and rhythms that are going to support those goals right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm assuming you've worked with moms other than just myself. When people tell you I'm just curious, when they tell you what their success looks like as a family, what are usually their answers?
So sometimes it's really specific, like they have a child that's going through something difficult and they'd like to see that through. But then once we break it down, it's something more like being present and available, like having the mental, emotional space to care well for them, which a lot of times is like they need to be recharging or they need to be in therapy or getting the support that they need. Or they just need like to build in that girl time every month or something, like being able to see their friends or vent or whatever that might be, or they need more support from their spouse. And so it leads to that kind of conversation or building into their routine, like a planning session with their spouse or something to have more, to be on the same page or something. But a lot of times it's being present, I think, especially for moms of young kids, like we talked about, and that's what's true for me. I think, like I said, when I was working in office space, it was just like a really clear work and home life. And now that it's like, I'm a partially stay-at-home parent, I do have my work that I work about like 15, 20 hours a week. And I just like, my big thing right now, and what I hear from a lot of other moms is like, okay, when I'm working, I want to be working. When I'm with my kids, I want to be intentional. I don't want to have to be, on my phone or something or checking email.
Yeah. That's big for me. That's like my big thing,
Yeah.
especially after
your job's on your phone.
Vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot. And we were just on vacation and I just sat because this month was just rough on social media in general, but I just sat and I was like, I'm trying to figure this out the right way because I do feel like my phone is just constantly by me. And I think that there is definitely an addiction level there. I will say that. So it's definitely something where I'm like, I have to train my brain not to default to grabbing my phone. But it becomes a lot where I'm like, I sometimes feel like I constantly have my phone in my hand and I do not want my kids to see that. So I got back and I said, you're going to set a timer. Like you get on this time, you get on like 3 times a day and spend a decent amount of time on there and then you're done. And then you put your phone down, turn off notifications and move on.
Yeah. The phone thing comes up all the time when I'm coaching people or they're just like, what app should I get to limit it? And I do have some recommendations and stuff for that. But I think the biggest thing that helps is asking yourself, like, what is the purpose of what am I doing when I pick up my phone? Because I think our problem is like, I will literally pick up my phone to, I don't know, maybe like text my mom or like look up something on the internet. And I'll just open Instagram or like, I'm like, what am I doing? It's just because you have
it's a default.
What's it called? When you just like, it's like when you get in a car, you just like know you start driving somewhere that you drive every single day with kids' school or something, and you're not even thinking about it. So I think just pausing, doing something to help you stop and say like, what is my intention right now? And maybe it is like, I'm going to take a 10-minute break to
Yeah.
look online or something, or like if you're looking for something specifically, how are you going to limit your usage after that?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Yeah, well, no kidding. The big thing too, and I think the phone problem and what I've noticed is, like if your kids, I don't know if your kids use screens or anything, but my kids do all the time. But I always notice when my kids have gotten too much. And there are moments where I start to recognize it myself. I'm like, you've gotten too much. And I feel so scattered. It's like my brain can't get one clear, concrete thought. And then I'm like, just snappy, which is what my kids are like. They turn into little like demons after too much screen time. And I'm like, okay, done. Like detox.
Yeah, I know.
Let's go.
Oh my gosh.
But it's, it's a
well,
killer.
they always say like multitask. You don't actually multitask. You just like switch. I don't know if you heard of this. So you switch really quickly from one thing to the other. So if you're actually on your phone and doing something else, you're switching like whatever content you're consuming there and whatever you're doing in the real life. But you're doing it so quickly that like that's why it adds to mental fatigue, because even though it doesn't feel that difficult for you afterwards, you were literally your brain was just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth so fast that you don't notice that you're doing that. But it's just
that makes sense.
That's a lot of fatigue on you. Yeah. It's definitely not the most efficient way to operate.
No, it's not. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a new course. I think you just launched that. And I know I wanted to hear more about what all that is and mastering your calendar.
Yeah, it's called Calendar Mastery. I'm hosting it on Teachery, which is like a really simple online course platform where you click through and watch videos. And it covers mastering time, tasks, and email. Email just always comes up because people spend like a ton of time work or like managing school emails or doctors, whatever it is. Like everything comes in through email, and we tend to spend a lot of time doing that. And so there's a whole section about that. And then the calendar piece is a lot on how to map out an ideal week for yourself, how to do the audit that I talked about at the beginning of this, like, okay, where to start, figure out where your time's going, and then come up with an ideal week and a routine that works well for you. And I just kind of walk you through questions to ask yourself, and there's journal prompts and that sort of thing. And then the time piece goes through how do you do a weekly planning session that you can do with yourself, your spouse, or like, I guess you could do it with like an assistant or someone if you're trying to do like business planning or something. But really just take a look at your week ahead and map out all your tasks in your calendar. So how to move from a to-do list to a calendar, and so that you can focus on the present and live each day knowing what you're going to accomplish and kind of get away from the long to-do list mentality. Yeah, it's something I've been sorry.
The big thing too, and I was going to ask, when you work with people, do you work with men mostly?
Yeah,
or do you find it to be
it's mostly women, my client base, but I have worked with men.
Yeah. Do you find that I'm always curious on like the whole mental load aspect, because typically a lot of the women hold it. I'm just curious if like, are guys wanting to pursue this as much? Because I don't know, it's such a difference where I'm like, are they needing this as hard? Are guys needing this just as much? Or do you find it?
I guess I can't answer it fully, because I don't know that I've ever worked with a man who, like as you said, is the default parent. So I don't know if I were to work with a man who was the default parent, if they're, as we're talking about their ideal week and stuff like that, if they're considering all those sorts of things. I have worked with men who we talk mostly about work, and it's not that they're not parents as well or have a family to consider or personal life, but I think it's a little bit easier, or it's not a perceived problem of theirs, the switching from being home and present there and work. So they're really just looking for how to be more efficient in the workplace. I mean, sometimes it's mentioned like, oh, if I can be more efficient at work, I can spend more time at home. Or if you like work from home, then, maybe you can cut down your hours overall if you're working more efficiently. But yeah, it's totally different. It's not the same. Like, and I will say the emotional pieces out of it. Like, you don't really hear. I haven't worked with any men who are like, oh, I feel so guilty that I'm not, like, they're not saying those kind of words.
Yeah.
So they're not like
it's stuff like that where I'm like listening to this and I'm like, is it just us? Like, I feel like we are so bombarded, which I think at the end of the day, when I list out everything that I have on my plate, it's just tiny, minute details. I'm like, it's no wonder I'm exhausted. And I think that's why so many of us we're like, no wonder we're overwhelmed with everything. Like, no shit.
Yeah. And it's not that like I don't want to be working on that stuff too. I actually just had this conversation with my spouse too, that I'm like,
yeah,
because he's of course like, give me some of this mental load. Like, I have more time and I have the capacity to take some of it on. And it's like, it's not that I necessarily want to give things up. I just want to be acknowledged for it. And so that's sort of like what we're working on. And like, I think I need to acknowledge myself though. And I think a lot of times as women, it's not always like our partner who's not acknowledging us. It's sometimes we don't give ourselves the credit for the mental load that we're carrying. And that's why, like, one reason why I love following you, because I feel like that's a theme in a lot of the content that you put out. It's like, we can laugh about it, but it's also like, hey, like, you're doing a good job. If you're feeling this way, that's normal. And that's a sign that you are doing a good job.
Anyway, well, I loved this conversation. Where can everyone find your course and everything? Where can everyone find you?
Oh yeah, I'm on Instagram at the Meaning Mentor, and I share a lot of like productivity tips and things like that. So if you're looking just to enhance kind of the way you're working or some ideas on how to do that better, you can find me there. And my website is themeaningmentor.com. You can find my course there, or you can work with me one-on-one if that's the type of support that you need.
Cool. Yeah. And I would recommend her tremendously. It was very helpful when we met. I know one of our goals actually was we sat and I said for 100K, and I think we were like a month or whatever. And I believe I messaged you right afterwards because I hit it afterwards. We came up with like a game plan and it went through and I was like, oh shit. Yeah, this works.
So exciting. Yeah. I love to see those successes and kind of follow along there too.
Yeah. And I mean, for anyone listening, it like, not that you told me strategy point, it was like how to dedicate and what we can do to schedule out and that way I can implement my Instagram strategy, but knowing when to do it. That's what Meaghan and I determined. And it was incredibly helpful because it was like a consistency thing of being like, okay, I have a plan. I know how to show up. We can do this.
Yeah, totally. Most people like think they're lacking strategy or discipline, but I think they actually have it. Like, with everyone knows, like we've already been talking about this all night of like, you are the best mom for your kids, and you're the only one that's going to come up with the, like, you've been successful with your brand because your content resonates with people and that's what you're good at. I think it's just setting aside time to actually plan and then like stepping away from it for a minute, that we don't do that really well. And we definitely don't do it on our own.
No.
So just having someone to kind of sit down and like think through that strategically with, and take the time to get a like outside perspective of what's going on right now inside your home or inside your business can be really helpful for people.
Yeah, you need like a middleman sometimes when you have to like really take a step like this. You need someone that's like unemotionally attached.
Yeah, like not someone who's impacted by your decisions or something. It's difficult sometimes when you're like venting to your spouse or something. It's helpful to have someone who's kind of outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Highly recommend. I think that this is so helpful because we do have a lot on our plates. For everyone listening, like, you are probably doing this on top of like, I hope you're listening in a good portion of the day, but if you're listening, chances are you're probably folding laundry.
Doing the dishes,
doing the dishes, or I don't know, taking the dog for a walk, whatever it might be. But it's like, those are things on your list that you are doing right now. And it's long. Yeah. And it's okay. We're in it together. Hopefully we can lessen it as we talk more about this. That's my goal, is like, I think it's both sides having to break it, especially like the whole mental load portion, both sides have to break it. Cause I think we've been trained as women kind of to accept the brunt and not feel it as hard when it hits. And I think we've trained our guys to not even recognize the brunt.
Sure.
Here,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So it's like we have a lot of lessons to do, but I'm hoping that like more talking about this stuff just like starts conversation and both sides can kind of like let down their guard and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Love the podcast. I'm excited to keep listening and be a part of your community.
Yeah, we have fun. We have a good old time here. But for everyone listening, I will link everything of Meaghan's in the show notes. That way you guys can scroll and get to know her. I would highly recommend it. Reach out and just take the shot. Just take the shot and have someone else walk you through it. That way you can feel better about your day. Another episode down. Thank you all so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, I would be so appreciative if you would leave a rating and review. I cannot begin to tell you how much those mean to me, but also how much they help me get in front of more eyes and more ears. As always, be sure to check back every Tuesday and Friday for a new episode, whether it's an episode with me and my husband, me and Katie, or just another incredible, amazing guest. Stay tuned for more honest, real, raw chit chat. And hey, do me a favor before you go. Remind yourself how amazing you are, how enough you are, how special you are. And boy, oh boy, I sure am glad to have you here. Thanks, friend. Another episode down. Thank you all so much for listening. If you